right, I think we're live.
Yay!
Hey,
Yay!
do you see us on the homepage?
Yes, I see. Okay. Hi, everybody.
Hi,
This is Linda.
this is Gabby from Brain Education TV.
Woohoo.
How is everyone today? Thank you for joining our live and welcome. This live is meant to be interactive for us to go back and forth on our topic today. So please interact in the chat box below. Please comment and write and interact with us. This is the purpose of our live, so we can enrich the conversation more. Yes, and welcome today.
Yes. Can you please type in the chat where you guys are tuning in from? Your name, where you're tuning in from. A little hello, maybe, whatever you want to say in the chat to kickstart today's live. And as you guys do that, as you guys comment about where you're from, I just wanted to let you know about a new feature that we added to our lives recently. It's called Super Chat. So a Super Chat is that button right here where you click to say something. Right under it, there's a rectangle with a dollar sign. And that button, when you click it, you can send us some love, virtual love. It's like a virtual hug by donating a small amount to our channel to help fund our videos so we can keep creating helpful contents for you. Your donations help us reach more people who need help dealing with mental health. As you know, our channel deals with mental health, especially for young people, but mental health is not only limited to young people. We try to reach as many people as we can. So any amount will be very, very helpful and very, very appreciated. If you want to just give us a little love on the super chat, that'd be awesome. And for anyone who donates more than $25 in the super chat, we will schedule, Gabby and I will schedule a separate one-on-one time with you for 15 minutes so we can chat or talk about something specific that's on your mind that you want to talk to us about or need help or just want someone to talk to. We're here, so please feel free to use that function. We will greatly appreciate it.
Yes, so I see some people commenting. There's Molly from Ireland, welcome, and Uzma from Pakistan, and Maud from Kashmiri. That's so exciting. There's people from all over here.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Oh, and just a note, I have pretty bad allergies today because I'm in Arizona right now and it's already pretty warm and like springtime here. So the flowers are blooming and they're itching my nose. So if you hear me sniffling or sneezing every now and then, please excuse me. I'm suffering from allergies today, but yes, just a note. So you don't wonder why she keeps sniffling and blowing her nose.
And I'm in Dallas and it's currently like 7 degrees. It's so cold. All the power's out all around town. There's snow everywhere. It's rare for Dallas to have that. So hopefully the power doesn't go out.
Oh, that'd be so bad.
You know. Okay, so let's get started with our live topic. So our live today is going to be a discussion on self-love. So first of all, what are your thoughts in the audience about self-love? Are you good at it? Are you bad at it? Are you working on it? It's cool that nowadays self-love has become a more popular topic of discussion, because I know when I was growing up and when Linda was growing up, it just seemed like a very egotistical thing for people to say like, oh, I love myself, like it just makes people seem very selfish and not caring for other people. And a truly good person doesn't love themselves. They have to sacrifice for others. So in society, that was the norm when we were growing up. And, it's like kind of was a taboo to be like, I love myself, I care about myself. So I think that's really cool nowadays that it's more popular to talk about this subject.
Yes. So I see more people typing in the chat where they're tuning in from. We have people literally from all over. So since we last read, we have someone from Kuwait. We have Jay Gold. Oh, I think that's Judy. Hi, Judy. From Florida. Yes, Judy from Florida. And then Bulgaria, Sophia, Sunshine State, Florida. Zoila, I know Zoila. Hi, Zoila. Juan from Los Angeles, my hometown, Los Angeles. Wow, people from everywhere. Okay, so as you guys type in where you guys are from, please also type the first topic of discussion, which is what is your thought about self-love? So since we're talking about self-love today, anything that you want to say about self-love, whether, as Gabby mentioned, whether you're good at it or bad at it or a work in progress, we'd love to know what your thoughts are just to kind of kickstart the discussion. So as you guys type about your thoughts about self-love, let me kind of expand on what Gabby just left us with about people who view, or we grew up in a culture where self-love was kind of seen as like a bad thing, like, oh, if you love yourself, you must be selfish. So where did this image even come from? Where did this belief even come from? Because it sounds kind of crazy to think, if you take a step back and kind of think about it, it sounds kind of crazy to think that loving yourself is a bad thing. So I think that maybe it has to do with how heroes are portrayed in movies, especially Hollywood films where the hero saves the day. The hero in movies always saves the day by sacrificing himself or herself for someone else, to save her city or to save her love, to save her family. Something about sacrificing themselves for somebody else is seen as the good guy. And usually the bad guy is the one who's doing the opposite, killing people or taking things away for their own selfish gain. So I think we have this subconscious embedding in our mind that, oh, the good guy is someone who sacrifices themselves, and oh, the bad guy is someone who only cares for himself. So, but I think it's a good thing that nowadays this idea of self-love and this word of self-love is becoming more common, is becoming more accepted, is becoming more of kind of like a trend. We have a lot of people, especially like celebrities nowadays, who even talk about self-care, self-love. We have a very famous K-pop group called BTS. If you're not familiar with them, Google them. They're a huge K-pop group who talks about loving themselves for young people. And I think they're wildly popular because the young people resonate with that kind of message, to love themselves. So I'm really glad to see that it's becoming less of a taboo, this word self-love. So how do we ever live in a society, if you think about it, like in the past? Like, I'm sure you guys tuning into this live right now, you also, like Gabby and I, grew up in a culture and were taught subconsciously that self-care and self-love was selfish. So how do we ever live in a society where talking about yourself and loving yourself is bad? Really think about that. Think about how you grew up and what the image of self-love was when you were younger versus now.
Right. So I think, so we grew up in a society where self-love is considered bad, and this kind of creates a sense of guilt for loving yourself, or a fear of judgment for loving yourself. So when that kid grows up to be an adult, that's what they pass on to their children and when they become parents. So then as a parent, they unknowingly pass that on. And then it creates like a cycle of these parents passing, what they knew to their children. Even though they have the best intentions for their children, they didn't know how to love themselves, so they don't teach their kids to love themselves. And that's why our society is the way it is now. So we have so many people, young and old, who don't love themselves, don't respect the life that's inside of them. And that could be a big reason why many people hurt not only themselves, but they hurt the people they care about. And it just creates a society where people are constantly hurt or constantly hurting others. So maybe you grew up in this kind of environment, or maybe you have some kind of idea about this topic, about growing up, how you grew up. Maybe you didn't have, like, you weren't really taught self-love. Could you share in the comments below if that's something you resonate with?
I see some people already commenting in the chat. So Judy says it comes from culture and religion, which I totally agree with. Certain cultures, certain religions ban and put like a shame factor and guilt factor into caring about yourself. So that definitely plays a huge role. And yes, I see someone else, Abdul, saying it was wrongly passed on to us. Yes. As Gabby mentioned, people who are, when we were younger, people who are in places of teaching us, teachers, parents, older people, if they weren't passed down the information to love themselves, they unknowingly passed down that wrong information to us. So yes, that's very true. So Uzma, you say, I have no time for self-love. What should I do? I'm trying best but fail. I will get to that. There's always time for self-love, but we'll talk a little bit more about that in a sec. Okay, so as you guys type about your environment, maybe your environment really fostered love. Maybe you were blessed with wonderful parents who taught you to love yourself, respect yourself from a young age, which is great. Maybe some of you grew up in an environment where it was the complete opposite, where your parents didn't tell you to love yourself. They actually made you judge yourself and hate yourself more. Whatever spectrum you are in, this is a free discussion, so please feel free to type your experience. We just want to hear your story. So as you type your story, I'm going to share my story. And maybe as I share my story, you can resonate with some parts of my experience on self-love, or maybe you can resonate with the whole thing. So for me, I grew up in an Asian house, and in traditional Asian culture, we don't talk about love. We don't talk about love in general, not just self-love. We don't talk about love in general. It's typically a real Western thing to talk about love, especially even like parents to show love for each other, or like parents saying, I love you to each other. Like that didn't exist in my house. And it actually doesn't really exist, I think, in a lot of traditional Asian houses, unless that Asian house is very Westernized. So we never said, I love you to each other. Like, I don't remember growing up saying, I love you to my brothers, really, because it was so awkward, because I didn't grow up in an environment where my parents said, I love you to each other. And I never said, I love you to them. So the words, I love you, were so awkward to my lips and so awkward in my like palate that I couldn't really say it. So because I didn't say, I love you to my family, even, I didn't even think about saying I love you to myself. So when I first started my inward journey, this kind of brain education inward path that I went on, when I first heard about this concept of loving myself, it was so difficult and it was so awkward, really. I never really thought about it because, as we mentioned before, there's so much shame that I felt that, oh, if I even take care of myself in a little way, people are going to see that I'm selfish, or people are going to judge me and think I'm a bad person. So I'm so afraid of people's judgment that I'm going to act like I'm not loving myself. So I grew up in that kind of like vibe. So it was very difficult in the beginning, but yeah, when I think back on it, it was because when I looked inside during my inward journey, when I looked inside of myself, inside of my own heart, all I can see were shortcomings, because I was so used to judging myself, critiquing myself. I was never good enough. I had to do better because I grew up in that kind of strict environment. Like, so all these voices of like, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, all these negative voices of self-doubt inside of me, of me constantly comparing myself to other people became huge obstacles in my mind that blocked me personally from exercising any sort of self-love in the beginning. And I think the worst part of this is that if you can see that, oh, I don't really love myself, the worst part is that you can't really even talk about this with other people, because you can't just like call, unless your like best friend is really cool and really down with this kind of stuff, you can't really call someone up and be like, hey man, I don't love myself, what do I do? Maybe it's more acceptable now with this younger generation because self-love is more part of culture. But
Right.
for sure, when I was younger, when I was growing up, if I tried to call my friend and say I don't love myself, they're gonna think I'm weird.
Yeah.
They're gonna think I'm this like negative Debbie Downer, like, what's wrong with Linda? She looks fine on the outside. She looks social. She looks happy, but what is she even talking about?
Right.
And when you're younger, the thing that you're most sensitive to and the thing that scares you the most, maybe you can resonate. For me, at least, what scared me the most is being rejected or judged from my friends and family. So, because I was so afraid of that judgment from them, I didn't talk about self love. I didn't talk about these things. Had all this shame and guilt. So, I just bottled it all up inside, and it wasn't making me happy, it wasn't making me healthy, and it definitely wasn't good for my mental health. So that's my story.
So I see in the comments there's people sharing their stories. So keep sharing as we speak. I'm going to share mine really quickly too. So for me, my household, my mom, she put me in brain education from a young age, which I'm so grateful for. So I think I kind of, maybe it wasn't that much self-love, but it was like a positive mindset that I developed. So I'm really grateful for that from a young age. So I would recommend, if you have children or no children, to put them into like some kind of maybe brain education or something like that, so they can learn these kind of things to not judge themselves and, think badly of themselves. But I wanted to bring in, for me growing up, I was on social media since I was really young, like maybe like 9 years old. I was already on like all those sites. So it affected my mental health a lot. And I grew up being used to comparing myself to other people who seemed to have the perfect lives, the perfect clothes, perfect bodies, perfect everything. And I know I'm not alone in this. There's so many people that grew up this way. So comparison like that is so damaging to your mental health, especially from social media. So over the years, I learned more and more through brain education to train myself and to not be as affected by it, by unfollowing accounts, limiting my social media use, or just, practicing gratitude, things like that. It really helped me develop more self habits, and it's a work in progress. But yeah, I just wanted to share a little bit about the social media aspect, how it could be so detrimental to your mental health.
Yeah. And it's even worse now because now the kids these days, I remember a time of growing up during recess without a cell phone. I remember running around in the playground and the only entertainments were board games and maybe like a Game Boy, but we definitely didn't have social media. Definitely didn't have a cell phone. But kids these days, I see like 1 year olds at the restaurant, like staring into their tablet. So these kids nowadays, they don't know a world without social media, without this comparison. So it's crazy to think about it. Yeah. So I think let's read some comments. We have some comments from people.
So Francine says it's difficult to know the correct boundary between self-love and selfishness. Yes, and we'll touch more on that as the live goes on. Juan says we're not really taught about loving ourselves, and I grew up being the eldest and trying to help raise the family because of economic reasons. Yes, that's true. And because that was, put on you, you had to raise the family that way. You couldn't really focus on yourself. So that's very common. And uh,
You're not
Jade,
alone, Juan.
right. Judy says, I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror for fear of being judged as conceited and vain.
A lot of women deal
Yeah.
with this. I did that too. I think I even remember like like I one day like I looked at myself and then I was like, wow, I look pretty good today. I think I said that when I was younger. And then
Mhm.
my friend was like, oh my God, you're conceited. Like, and I was like, what? So it's I don't know. We kind of like grew up in a society where that's looked on as bad, but we need to
Right.
change that narrative because
Exactly.
we should look at ourselves into our eyes in the mirror more and tell ourselves how beautiful we are
Exactly.
instead of waiting for someone like another like lover to tell us how beautiful we are until we feel that love.
Hmm. Natasha says, I grew up strict also. I was the only one who believed in myself. And to this day, I could get a 99, and the response is, why didn't you get 100?
Oh my God, I totally, that kind of reminds me of a story. So a little side like story. So my household was exactly like this. Like because my parents were immigrants and they really, really wanted us to do well, especially academics was everything. So I remember in like middle school, we had this like math final. Okay. We had this big math final. It was 100 question math final. When you're 12 years old, 100 questions seems like 10,000 questions, right? So out of 100 questions, I got only one wrong.
Oh my
So
God.
I got a 99% on that final. And I think I like did the best in the class. I think, yeah, everyone else at least missed one. And I was the one who missed one, right? So I was like the best score in the class. So I was so proud of myself. So I ran home and I got that piece of paper and I showed my parents. I was like, Mom, look at this. It was such a difficult 100 question final math exam. And I was the top of the grade. And I only missed one. And you know what my mom said? She
What?
was like, well, why'd you miss one?
Oh my gosh.
So it was that kind of environment. So Natasha, your sharing reminded me of that story. So I was like, ah, so yeah, pretty traumatic. I know exactly what you mean. Okay, so 10 Mr. Bomber. 10 Mr. Bomber comments on a lot of our videos. I recognize your
Oh,
screen name.
nice.
Hi, 10 Mr. Bomber. And then Rand, I've been negative most of my life. Yes. Depending on the environment you grew up on, a lot of people grow up this way too.
Mhm.
So gray N still sounds weird to me, especially because I'm a mother. You know why self-love is difficult for moms? Is because the role of a mom inherently demands self-sacrifice.
Exactly.
So when you take on that responsibility as a mother, your priority becomes your family. So it's very hard to put yourself as a priority. But as a mother, it's very, very important, moms out there, that you take care of yourself first before you take care of your family. Because have you heard of the oxygen mask principle? When you get on the airplane, they tell you when the air pressure drops, oxygen masks will fall from the ceiling. Put your mask on first before assisting others. There's a
Mhm.
very important reason why that is. Because if you don't have the proper oxygen and your brain starts to lose function and you're dying and you try to put the mask on somebody else first, but then you die in the process, knock on wood, and now you didn't get the oxygen and the other person didn't get the oxygen either. I
Right.
have to be in the right state, health wise, mental wise, so that I can help someone else better. If I put that mask on first, then now I have proper oxygen flowing inside of me. So now I'm alert and I can help more people who are in need. So if you really have that desire to help somebody, especially your family, and take care of your family really well, which I'm sure all of you have that desire to take care of your family really well, if you as like the bloodline, this like foundation and pillar of your family, if you are drained and tired and not healthy, everyone in your family suffers. So think about it in a different way. Instead of me trying to sacrifice for the well-being of my family, think that I am the well-being of my family.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm not well, my family is not well, which is true for a lot of moms because moms are the pillar of a family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna you guys can keep chatting here. We'll read more of the comments as you guys go on. But yeah, we'll continue this discussion. So keep typing, okay? All right. So maybe some of you guys are in a place where you think self-love sounds good, but do I really need it? Especially people who your life might be perfectly comfortable right now, just the way it is. You have enough financial means, you have all the things you could want. So you were wondering, my life is okay right now. Do I really need self-love? So an answer to that question might be another answer that I want to ask you. So I want to ask you another question as the answer to the previous question. So if you are wondering, is self-love really necessary? I want to ask, well, that depends. What kind of quality of life do you want? So what kind of quality of life do you want? Every single person is living their life. Some people live a truly enriching and fulfilling life. They're very lucky to have found something that makes their lives truly fulfilling, while others are living with a lot of suffering and struggles. So the people who are suffering and living with struggles, maybe their struggles are external. Maybe you literally live in an environment where there's so much suffering around you. Or your struggle can be something entirely internal, which means on the outside, you're living a very wonderful life. Your environment is perfect. You live in a great neighborhood. You have a nice house. You have wonderful neighbors. Your hedges are trimmed. Your fence looks great. Everything looks great around you, but there's so much struggle inside between your own mind. So I want to ask you, what kind of quality of life do you want? If you really think about, do I need self-love or not?
I think that the question of self-love comes back to what Linda said. What kind of life do you want? So if you have your perfectly trimmed hedges and fancy cars, all those things, is that really fulfilling you fully? Or are you looking for something more? It's easy to get a lot of money. There's a straight formula for success. So, or for at least acquiring money. You work hard and it's like a formula. It's relatively not that difficult, as you could see so many examples around the world of people who achieved success. But compared to success, self-love is very difficult. And you could see that because how many people can you name right now that you can say that they truly love themselves and they truly practice self-love and achieved self-love? So if we asked you to name some successful people with lots of money, lots of things, you can probably name so many right off the bat, like celebrities, entrepreneurs, athletes, people in your personal life. But from all those people, or from anyone you know, how many people can you name that you think that fully love themselves? That's why self-love is not that easy, especially if you're not being very honest with yourself or very true to yourself and
That's
what
a
you
very
want to achieve, right?
That's a very interesting thought. You just said, Gabby, about being honest with yourself, being true to yourself. So being honest and being true, what does that even mean? That sounds great, but what does that even mean? So let's talk about that a little bit, because I think that has something to do with self-love. So I think that inside of our brains, we have an internal eye that's been watching us in every action we take. And sometimes we call that conscience. You know, if you've watched Pinocchio, Jiminy Cricket, that his voice that tells Pinocchio, don't do this, don't do the bad stuff, do the good stuff. That little voice inside of us that every single one of us has, our conscience, our internal eye, has been watching us. And sometimes all of us, we are guilty of not speaking, not acting, and not living in a way that's true to who we are inside. And there are many times we had to act like this just to play the game in society and just to survive, just simply to survive, whether it's you or your family, just simply to survive. You had to choose actions, choose words, choose ways of life that are not 100% true to you. So you might have justified reasons for why you had to do the things you had to do, especially if you've been chasing success in society. That's wow, that's a tongue twister. Success in society. Because a game of success means you have to compete with others. And the nature of competition means you have to trample over somebody who's ahead of you so that you can be ahead of them. That's just the nature of competition itself, whether it's sports, whether it's just life in general. Competing with people means you have to, by all means, take over the person ahead of you so that you can be ahead of them. So in that kind of game, in that kind of system that we live in society, do you think that we can always be very honest, very generous, very gentle, very loving all the time? Of course not. Because if you did that, you would get trampled all over. And I think that's why so many of us close our hearts to love, because we're so afraid of getting hurt, because we all have experience somehow of getting hurt from the people we love and we wanted love from. So the point is that as we live this worldly life of competition and success, we all had to do things that we're not proud of. I will be the first to admit that. And the thing is that the internal eye, this conscience that we have, this scale that knows exactly when we're doing right and when we're doing wrong, has been watching us this whole time without saying a word, just watching us, watching every move that we make. And so because of that, it remembers every time we do something over and over again, every single time we act out of character, we say things out of character, we say things that are not really true to who we are inside, maybe for a day or maybe for a week, maybe for months, maybe for years and years and years, until you become this like consistent liar internally and externally, then it stores in our brain as memory. So if you have memory of you constantly not being true to yourself, then it becomes a foundation of why we judge ourselves. Mm-hmm. Have you ever had self-judgment and self-doubt and you don't really know exactly where that judgmental voice inside of your brain comes from? For me, before I did brain education and I was able to see that, become awake and more aware of what's going on inside of me, this voice of self-judgment was so loud because of what I was taught and because I was acting, speaking, and doing things that were not really true from my heart. So the more self-judgment you have, the more memories you have of not being truly aligned with what is right inside of you. And if that is the case, the less self-love we have. Because in our own selves, we don't have credit. When someone, imagine your best friend, or not even your best friend, when someone lies to you over and over and over again, does that person have any credit with you?
No.
No, you don't trust them. Same thing with inside, that internal eye inside of me. If I do something that's out of character within my own conscience, I lose trust and credit with myself, which means my self-love will go less and less. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense so far? What do you guys think? I saw some of you guys typing as I was speaking, but yeah, does it make sense? What do you guys think? Okay, let me read some of the comments. So as you type more, let's see. Okay, someone said, thank you for the 10 minutes. Thank you. Okay, I heard as Jackie says, as a mother, I always think I'm not doing right by my kids, comparing myself to other mothers who think are doing better. Yes, comparison, as Gabby mentioned, comparison on social media, and this kind of comparison is the same comparison, just different mediums. Exactly. Comparison is the biggest poison to loving yourself, because there will always be a better mother than you out there. There will always be a prettier girl than you out there. But you know, better and pretty, guess what? Are all relative. Mm-hmm. Prettier is set by the standard of beauty that we just created out of thin air. So like the standard of beauty in America is different from the standard of beauty in Asia. For example, in Asia, the standard of beauty is white skin, like milky white skin. But in America, the standard of beauty is golden tan. Right. So what's prettier? It depends on who you ask. Mm-hmm. So it's all relative. So Jackie, who you think is a better mother is because you have a standard in your mind of what a good mother should be. Mm-hmm. But a good mother is relative. Depends on the kid you're asking. For some kid, a good mother is someone who gives them a lot of allowance. For another kid, a good mother is someone who doesn't give them any money, but showers them with kind words. Mm-hmm. So it's all relative. So check what you believe is a good mother. Okay. Gabby, do you want to read some comments? I feel like I've been talking for a long time.
So Miss 10 Mr. Bombers said, the routines are so helpful to get more self-love for the mind over body, and it's so powerful, super powerful. Thank you. Natasha said, I heard we identify with roles and lose touch with who we are. Like being a parent, be careful because you may spend all your precious time away planning for a future instead of living in the moment. Yes.
I want to read this comment from Alambradas because I think it's so spot on and key to this conversation. Is one thing that I've learned about self-love is it's based on simple actions like resting when you're tired. That is so true. And I want to bring this to the light because this has to do with you honoring what you want. So many of the times we're so tired, but because like someone demands our attention, we put our tiredness to the side and we just sacrifice our energy for somebody else. And yes, there are times in life when you have to do that. Depending on the situation, there are times when you have to do that. But when this becomes a habit, like you're always not listening to what your body wants, and you're always shoving what you want for the sake of other people, putting other people as a priority, you are going to burn out. So when someone needs your attention, a good way to practice self-love is someone needs your attention, but you're so exhausted right now. Maybe you can't take an hour nap, but you can give yourself a 5-minute break. You can give yourself a 5-minute break and then tend to their needs. They can wait 5 minutes. It's not the end of the world. Unless it's like literally an emergency and you have to go. Yeah. But if they're just like, can you make me food? I'm hungry. They can wait 5 minutes. So if you're really tired, take 5 minutes for yourself. Breathe, close your eyes, go to a quiet place, do something, and then tend to their needs. So for moms, this was very key. So listening to that inner voice is very, very key for self-love. So I don't know if we have time to read all these comments, but let's read a few.
So Natasha says, I'm struggling with self-love because I've been chasing attachments, approval from others, money. Linda, I did your let go of attachments last night, and I plan to do it regularly.
Thank you, Natasha.
And that also goes along with the comparison and all those and are you seeking something that truly fulfills you, or is it what society thinks? Or, we did a live last month that kind of about life purpose, that kind of talks about this topic, if that's of interest to you, to kind of find something that truly is for your true self, not for what you think, society wants.
Yeah, I love how you guys are responding to each other. Good. Please keep typing. We love that.
Yes.
Yeah, so we'll just keep going with our discussion, but please type and we'll read some of the comments here and there.
Yes. So as Linda was talking about before, if you will keep repeating the same pattern, if you don't realize how she said about the right and wrong and your internal eye, if you don't kind of rewire your brain to do good things for yourself. So what you have to do, you have to get more self-love and have to do right by your conscience. You have to act in a way that if you were a third person just watching yourself, watching your own behaviors, seeing what you're doing every day, watching the way you speak to people, the kinds of words you use, and would you be proud of yourself if you just saw yourself as a third person? Would you think of yourself as a good person? That's a way to not repeat this pattern that Linda was talking about. So, and that's also a way to build credit within your own internal eye so that it can document more data of you doing good things. And when more and more of this information accumulates, then you have more memories and data of in your brain of you being a good person, of you doing good things for yourself, for others, and that self-judgment, that fear of judgment will naturally silence and you won't have to wrestle with it. Because if all you could think of yourself as a third person, like, oh, they're a great person, you're not going to think those things. And because when people feel self-judgment, they fight with themselves that they have self-judgment. They hate that they have self-judgment and they resist and they want to fight that. So do you think you could ever achieve self-love in that way? I don't think so.
I would say for most people who are trying to find self-love, the biggest obstacle is self-judgment. As some people mentioned above, I think it was Judy who said there's so much judgment about looking at myself in the mirror, being called conceited, being considered vain, or so much judgment of me thinking I'm not a good enough mother, or some judgment of myself thinking that, oh, like you're a bad person if you take care of yourself before your husband or kids. Some kind of judgment blocks us from loving ourselves fully. So when we talk about it in terms of energy, judgmental energy is dark energy. Loving energy is bright energy. So we all try to become bright, especially if you're doing internal work, spiritual work, we try to achieve brightness inside. Mm-hmm. So I want to talk about it, this kind of like self-love and self-judgment in terms of darkness and light. So maybe you can sense the darkness inside of you. That sounds way worse than it actually is. Sense the darkness inside of you. Maybe you can find some areas that are not as bright as you want. And most people, when they see this dark spot in themselves, they see the judgment, they see the self-doubt, what they do is they fight with it, or they try to somehow erase that darkness because you don't like it. So if you see yourself judging yourself, maybe you're trying to get rid of this judgment, but you judge that you're judging yourself. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. But the only way to get rid of darkness, and this is not just darkness inside of me, but any kind of darkness inside or outside, is to not fight the darkness itself, but to simply turn on the light. Think about it in this way. If you're in a dark room, how do you make that room bright? You
Turn
just turn on the lights.
on.
You just turn on the darn lights. You just flip the switch and the dark room naturally becomes bright in an instant, right?
Mhm.
But you trying to fight with your self-judgment, fight with the darkness inside of you is as crazy as you entering a dark room and you're trying to shovel the darkness out with a bucket. Oh, I hate the darkness. I want it to be bright. And you're trying to shovel out the darkness with a bucket. Do you see how crazy that looks? If someone was in a dark room and you said, hey, can you make that room bright? And they said, okay. And they started shoveling the darkness. It doesn't solve the problem. And they
Right.
look crazy. You'll probably think they're insane. But it's the same principle with inside of you.
Mhm.
If you see self-judgment, if you see darkness inside, and you want brightness, you want light, don't fight that you don't love yourself completely. And don't judge yourself for judging yourself.
Mhm.
You just need to turn on the light inside by doing right by yourself. Show yourself through your actions, through your words, through your thoughts, through your behaviors, that you are a good person. So show your internal eye, show your conscience more positive memories of you, more bright memories of you being a good person. Then naturally, without you having to do some crazy, like, let's summon the spirits and angels to love me. Like, no, you don't need to do any crazy stuff. When you can show yourself that you are a good person, and as Gabby said, do right by yourself with small actions every single day, as someone mentioned above, alambradas, giving yourself rest when you're tired, those kinds of things put more memory of you being good to yourself. Then naturally you will build more credit, build more trust with yourself, which ultimately results in more self-love.
Mhm.
So if you don't feel self-love now, don't fight, don't judge, don't shovel the darkness out with buckets and look crazy. Just turn on the light. Turn on the light inside by doing good, doing right by yourself.
Yes. Yeah, I wanted to bring up, going off of that, the topic of when people don't feel self-love in themselves, where do they turn to? They usually turn to finding love in other people. So that's why men and women, they do crazy things to find someone to love them, because they can't, take the bucket and get rid of all that darkness. They think someone else will be that light and be that love that they crave. But when your source of love comes from an external thing, you will always be begging for it. And if someone doesn't provide that for you, you'll always feel empty, because nobody can love you like you want to be loved, like truly. That's not what people are made for. They're not made to be your exact type of love. Like nobody can love you like you can love yourself, because you're the only person that knows what you truly want and what you truly need. So if you create a system in your life where you get love in this way, then you can never really be happy, because if you're always dependent on another source, another outside source, on someone else, and you're always searching for something like this, you become kind of like a beggar. It's kind of like money. If you don't have your own money, you can ask people for money. And first of all, you feel bad because you're begging and asking. And
Yes.
second of all, if people don't give you that money, you can starve, and you can't provide for yourself, things like that. So people understand that concept, so that's why they work so hard to get their own money, so they don't have to ask others for money. So same thing happens with love. You have to have your own love before you can ask someone else for their love. Money and love are kind of have the same energy. At the end of the day, they all come from the same desire within us to receive and to get energy.
I see Natasha and Judy conversing. Great,
Mhm.
great. And Natasha, you brought up a really good point too, that the meditation about picturing yourself as a small child and treat them accordingly. We are so hard on ourselves and treat ourselves with how we would never treat others. That's so true. We have so much compassion for other people. If we see a child crying or someone suffering on the street, people like, if you see that in movies, people cry and people have so much compassion towards others who are suffering. But if you just took an even like a small amount of that compassion you have for others and apply it to yourself, then you would feel so much more self-love too. Because every single one of us, we have a lot of love. You can see that in people when people do good for other people, when people cry, when people suffer. We all have so much love, but we don't know how to channel that inward because we're not trained this way. So, to practice self-love, it takes constant awareness of yourself first. You have to see and be aware if you're making bad decisions or bad choices or doing things that are not right by you. Doing things that always put yourself in the back burner. How do you ever expect to gain the trust and respect of somebody if you always put them in the back burner?
Right.
So I personally, if you're wondering ways how you can practice self-love, and I remember someone up at the top said, I have no time for self-love. Uzma, if you're still here, Uzma, you said you have no time for self-love, but actually self-love is not another task to do.
Mm-hmm.
Self-love is something, is a lifestyle that's ingrained in the things that you already do. So even like drinking water, you already do that anyway. If you drink water just mindlessly, it's different from drinking that same water. It takes up the same amount of time, but doing it with self-love. So don't think of self-love as another thing. I have to put aside 30 minutes to practice self-love today. It's not another task. Yeah, it's not another chore. It's a way of thinking, a lifestyle that should be ingrained in what you're already doing anyway. So me, I personally practice self-love by this standard. I always try to think and act and behave in a way that makes me proud of who I am. So if you're wondering, what does that even mean? Like doing right by myself or being true to myself, being honest with myself. My standard I use is this action, is this thought, is this behavior, is this way of treating somebody, is it making me proud of who I am?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not necessarily about, I will be the first to admit also, when I was growing up and younger, I was obsessed with looking cool. I was obsessed with creating this cool girl image of myself because I was so afraid of people being able to see that I actually don't love myself inside.
Mm.
So it's not about doing things that make you look cool or be the most popular person, but something that makes you, at the end of the day, when you lie down to sleep, something that makes you, when you look back at yourself and you see how you acted, you see how you thought, you see how you conducted yourself with people and the choices that you made throughout your day, you think, wow, I'm a really good person. And that comes from a deep heart place, not like, oh, wow, I'm a great person. Not like that. Like, wow, I'm a really good person.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't come from a superficial place. It's deep down that in my heart, in my honest voice, in my heart of hearts, I know I did right by me. And if someone were to question me, I can confidently stand on my 2 feet, look them in the eye and said, I did right by me. And I think being able to say that about yourself is the act of self-love, is the practice of self-love, and it's true wealth that nobody can take away from you. If you, at the end of the day, can look at somebody in the eye and say, whatever you say about me, whatever you say to judge me, I know that I can look at myself in the eye and say, I did right by myself. Nobody can take that away from you. So it doesn't come from a place of justification. It comes from a place of true vulnerability, strength, honesty, confidence, and ultimately self-love.
Yes, wow. So from this discussion, does this give you some more ideas on how to practice self-love? And maybe you can see some reasons why you've had a hard time so far if you don't feel self-love, or maybe you can realize now and see where that self-judgment comes from and how to overcome it. And why do you need self-love in your life? And why we really need to teach this to people and kids on a foundational level.
So Jackie, you bring up another good point. She says doing right by yourself can hurt the other person, especially if you're ending a relationship. That is true, but I want to ask you this. Is it your responsibility to carry on their emotions?
No.
I know, yes, we're so afraid and the last thing we want is to hurt other people. But have you thought about how much you are hurting yourself by being in a relationship that doesn't fulfill you? So how come we can have so much compassion for the other person? If I break up with him or her, it'll hurt them so much. But you don't think about how much it's hurting me that I am not feeling fulfilled in this relationship, and that I'm dragging myself along in something that doesn't make me happy. So think about it in that way too. I had so much guilt about breaking up with previous lovers too, but somebody said this to me that I'm saying to you. Have you thought about how much you're hurting yourself by your fear of hurting the other person? Yeah. So how they perceive your action is entirely their responsibility. If they become hurt by it, if they become angry by it, that's totally their responsibility of emotions to burden. It is not your responsibility at all. Your responsibility is to make sure that you, Jackie, you inside are happy and fulfilled. That's your only responsibility. How others take your action and how they perceive it is totally their responsibility. It's a work in progress, I know, but try to think of it in that way. Maybe you'll step a little bit closer and closer and closer to focusing more on taking care of your health rather than being so afraid to hurt somebody else. So, self-love, wow, what a topic. Thank you for people who are still sticking around from the beginning. Maybe you guys are just jumping in now, but regardless, thank you everyone so much who has attended from the beginning and who's still attending, still here. I think self-love, very important, so important, in fact, that I think that schools should teach self-love to students.
Yes.
And make it a priority. Make it a priority. I think self-love is more important than calculus or geometry, which, to be honest with you, I've never used once in my life outside of school.
Me neither.
But if I learned self-love, if my teachers had self-love in the curriculum, if my parents had self-love in their parent guidebook, I would have definitely used that outside of school in my life, and it would have changed the relationship I have with myself and the relationship with other people. So it makes me wonder, are we really teaching young people who are our future leaders, are we teaching them the right things? Are we teaching them the truly important things that grow their empathy, that grow their compassion, that grow their sense of character to create a beautiful, healing world? So if you guys in this live have a child or some young people next to you, or you guys are teachers maybe, or psychologists or social workers or anybody who gets in access with young people, please, as an elder, as someone who is an enlightened elder, please teach them about self-love. Teach children about self-love so that they can grow up loving himself or herself, because that young child is the next future leader that will determine the outcome of the planet. So let's think about, do we want to create leaders who are addicted to tablets and smartphones and don't know how to communicate with other people and they just do this all day?
Nope.
Or we want to grow leaders who can look people in the eye, converse with them, and talk about love. I think you all joined this live and tune into our videos and subscribe to our channel because you resonate with that kind of healing message of brain education about creating a healing, loving, peaceful world. And it starts with your health, your mental health, your self-love. So Il Chili, the creator of brain education, his message, his kind of, I guess you can say mantra that he's teaching people these days is love myself, heal myself. That's his big message. That's, if I can summarize brain education in a short mantra, the foundational teaching that we do, the reason why we make the 10-minute routines, the reason why we make our videos, the reason why we do these live is to spread the message of love myself, heal myself. If you guys resonate with this, can you type in the chat, amen?
That would be such an ideal planet. And we need more people who are awakened to this idea to, help make it happen, because as the way the world is going now, it's just more tablets and more electronics, more things like that. So, we really need to try and make a change so people can actually love themselves, talk about themselves, and find their true selves. And I see people commenting, amen.
Amen. Hallelujah.
A woman.
Yes, a woman. Okay, I want to read some of your chats. Okay. Jackie, I've been learning I can't carry someone else's burden. Yes. Natasha, it can be scarier to be happy than comfortable. That's true. It can be scarier to be happy than comfortable, especially if you're comfortable being unhappy. We like doing things that are familiar. Okay, let's see. Jackie, it hurts more when they want to change and they are working on themselves too, and you somehow see a change, but we have kids together. Yes, that's a tricky situation, Jackie. But I think if you connect to your heart and ask yourself deep down here, not try to think yourself out of it, ask yourself deep down here, the perfect formula with all the complications and all the elements of your relationship with this person and the kids and everything. Obviously, I don't know everything about your life, so I can't give you like the perfect formula. You know the perfect formula, so please connect with your heart and ask deeply inside what you should do. That's the best practice. Always ask yourself. Okay, yes, it should be taught in school. Amen, amen. Hugs to you. Thank you very much for your brain education. Amen. Okay.
Okay, so as more people are commenting, I'm going to mention the 10-minute routines that Linda does each week, and that channel and that playlist. And you can look at all the videos from meditations to physical routines, all those things for 10 minutes. It's our most popular playlist, and like all the acid reflux, if any of those people are here that have seen that video, check it out for all kinds of symptoms. So I just wanted to mention that playlist So check it out and share it with people who you think it could benefit. If you know somebody who's depressed or somebody who needs some more body tapping or circulation or something like that, these videos are very shareable and easy to share, and especially with self-love. There's many videos in there that you can do for yourself as well. And then also the t-shirt Linda's wearing, Take Back Your Brain. It's available on our site, braineducationtv.com/shop.
I'll type it in the chat.
Okay. And so Take Back Your Brain. That's our slogan of Brain Education. Take back what's yours. And also, it's a great shirt as a conversation starter. You know, you wear it, people are like, what does that mean? It's really cool. So check out our t-shirt, and we're also coming out with a new one soon.
Yes, be on the lookout.
Yes, be on the lookout. We'll announce it. It's very exciting. And so we'll have a few t-shirts available for you. And if you support us, please check it out.
And then as we are wrapping up this live, I want to mention one more time, if you enjoyed our discussion, if you enjoy our content, if you enjoy what we do on our YouTube channel, then you can support the channel by donating a small amount to help fund our videos and to help fund our cause of brain education. You can do that by clicking on the rectangle under the chat function with a $sign. If you donate more than $25, we will schedule a 15-minute, Gabby and I will schedule a separate one-on-one session with you for 15 minutes so that we can talk or chat or discuss something that is on your mind, so that we can connect a little bit more deeper that way. But any kind of amount to donate and support for our channel will help us a lot. So please consider using that super chat function to show your support for Brain Education TV.
Yes, so if anyone has any last questions or comments about the topic today, please chat now. Please put it in the chat box and we'll look at them and we'll answer any last questions before we wrap up for today.
And as Natasha says, thank you for coming together and sharing, everybody. Yeah, I just love when people like chat with each other in the chat.
Yes.
So it was great that I saw so many people supporting each other and saying kind words and saying, yes, I resonate, like me too. I love that kind of stuff in our chat. So thank you all for coming together and making this a beautiful experience, because definitely we are all part of making this experience great together.
I love Amy's comment. She says, thank you for not telling me to buy something and get a pedicure. Yes, yeah, that's what, most self-love, some self-love things are just that, like, oh, treat yourself, or
Right.
which, yes, that's a part of self-love, but there's such a deeper meaning to it of why you need it, and, all those things we discussed today.
Right. Like to get a spa date with the girls and forget about your troubles and drink wine like that. No. No. Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Natasha, so good to see you. Thank you so much for being a rock star chatter on our chat today. You're great. Thank you everyone else so much. Amy, Juan, Veronica, Jackie, Judy, 1960 Genius, Rand, and everybody else who's still here. 10 Mr. Bomber, if you're still here. Abdul, Francine, Uzma, everybody else. Christina, Molly, Mode, everybody.
Everybody, thank you so much for joining.
All right, then with that, we'll end our live here today. We have a live every month. So next month, we'll be back with another topic of discussion. So everyone here, please join us next month and let's have another lively conversation, to encourage each other, to resonate, to support, to connect on these important topics of healing and helping each other heal too in the process. So we invite you to the next one in March. Please keep a lookout in your YouTube subscriptions, which, by the way, if you didn't subscribe, please subscribe to our channel and click the bell at the top for notifications so that when we announce the live, you will be notified of when that date is so you can stay in touch. So please make sure you click that bell and keep an eye out in your inbox for notifications.
Yes, also on our social media, we'll be updating and announcing these lives and also other news, and also our newsletter on braineducationtv.com. You can subscribe every single week. We send out a weekly newsletter with videos and announcements. So that's also a good way to stay in touch on what we're doing. So anyway, thank you everyone for joining, and we'll see you next time. Please.
Yes, we love you, everyone.
Love you.
Bye.